Hi everyone,
This is Nash.
this is Nash.
And I'm Dad. And
Nice.
we are going to read you a bedtime story. This is Nash's favorite bedtime story called Inside a House That Is Haunted. Are you ready to help me read it?
Yeah.
All right, let's read it. Here we go. Here is a house.
No, you don't by yourself.
Okay. Here is a house that is haunted. Here is the hand that knocked on the door outside a house that is haunted. Okay, you ready? Here is the...
You don't by yourself.
No, you read this part. Ready? Here is the
Hand,
that knocked on the
door,
and startled the spider that dropped to the floor inside the house that was haunted. Here is the
hand,
that knocked on the
door,
and startled the
ladder,
that dropped to the
floor,
that frightened the ghost who awoke and cried boo inside the house that is haunted. Here is the
hand,
that knocked on the
door,
and startled the
ladder,
that dropped to the
floor,
that frightened the
ghost,
who awoke and cried,
you,
surprising the cat that jumped and screeched meow meow inside a house that is haunted. You ready? Here is the
hand,
that knocked on the
door,
and startled the
ladder,
that dropped to
the
the
floor,
that frightened the
ghost,
who awoke and cried,
you,
surprising the
cat,
that jumped and screeched,
meow,
that shook up the bats that swooped through the air inside the house that is haunted. Here is the
hand,
that knocked on the
door,
and startled the
spider,
that dropped to the
floor,
that frightened the
ghost,
who awoke and cried,
boo,
surprising the
cat,
that jumped and screeched,
meow,
that shook up the
bat,
that swooped through the
air,
and jolted the owl who called who's there inside a house that was haunted. Here is the
hand,
that knocked on the
door,
and startled the
shadow,
that dropped to the floor, that frightened the
ghost,
who awoke and cried,
boo,
surprising the
cat,
that jumped and screeched,
meow,
that shook up the
bat,
that swooped through the
air,
and jolted the
owl,
who called
who's there?
that spooked the mummy who ran with a shriek inside the house that was haunted. Here is the
Hand,
that knocked on the
door,
that startled the
shadow,
and dropped to the
floor,
that frightened the
ghost,
who awoke and cried,
boo,
surprising the
cat,
that jumped and screeched,
meow,
that shook up the
bat,
that swooped through the
air,
and jolted the
owl,
who called
who's there?
that spooked the
Mummy,
who ran with a
shriek,
and rattled the skeleton who moved with a creak inside the house that was haunted. Here is the
hand,
that knocked on the
door,
and startled the
shadow,
that dropped to the
floor,
that frightened the
ghost,
who awoke and cried,
boo,
surprising the
cat,
that jumped and screeched,
meow,
that shook up the
bat,
that swooped through the
air,
and jolted the
owl,
who called
who's there?
that spooked the
Mummy,
who ran with a
shriek,
rattling the
skeleton,
who moved with a
creak,
that woke up the monster who stomped on huge feet, and when he threw open the door he heard trick.
shriek.
The little boy opened his mask, and all the monsters were scared, and they ran away inside the house that was haunted. The end. Nash, say goodnight to everybody.
Good night.